Hello, everyone, and welcome to Campus Culture. I'm Lamont Holden, professor of music, audio, and recording technology here at the University of Illinois. I'm also known as TheLetterLBeats. And this is a very special episode here at the Krannert Center for Performing Arts here on campus at the University of Illinois. Today, we're going to talk about decolonizing arts education and professional development for emerging artists.
This seems like a good time to pass it to Lamont as a connector and as a conversation maker. Lamont's got this great campus culture podcast that has been really wonderful to follow and teaching me about other conversations that I've not been hearing and listening to enough on this campus and beyond, and bringing in voices from off the campus. And you're thinking as an editor, you're thinking as a connector. Lamont, I'd love to hear where you might take this conversation in terms of trying to draw some lines between us here.
Well, thank you, Dean Hamilton. I appreciate that. And for those that don't know, my name is Lamont Holden, assistant clinical professor of music, audio, and recording technology here in the School of Music in the Fine and Applied Arts Department. I'm also a producer in the music industry known as TheLetterLBeats, and this is Campus Culture. These are conversations for this campus and campuses globally that need to be had for the culture, that let people know that their culture is honored. And starting, I thought it was important, at a PWI, right? And so I guess my thinking in starting campus culture is a couple things. We came out with the first ever hip hop fight song last year at any university in the world. And so one thing I do understand about the music industry, and this kind of speaks to some of the stuff we're talking about, right? When I think about colonies, I think about a stripping of ownership, right? And particularly when you're talking about music as an art, like, I was shocked to find out I didn't have more colleagues teaching students how to own their intellectual property, right? Let's start there, because that's the first thing they want to take from us, right? It's born out of this struggle, and then as soon as it gets hot, they sell it, right? And we don't see the profit. So, it was kind of like thinking about a platform that we could control. Somebody spoke earlier about the power of narratives, right? I had a student, Afro-Latinx student, who was having his hair touched. He's about my size, right? Now you imagine if he was running around touching, there was a bunch of white women touching his hair. If you imagine he's running around touching white women's hair, they get him off this campus quick, fast, right? One day he comes to a session, he's got his hair in braids, and he's telling me this story about how he's reporting it to the campus and nothing's being done. I knew in my heart, I had more faith in our podcast to make a difference than us calling the campus. Sure enough, we ran this podcast. 3 months later, we got a call from the Office of Civics, right? So the power of narrative is definitely something that could decolonize. So I'm thinking about, we talked about arts is an expression of self, right? And in order to express yourself most authentically, you have to have space to do that, right? So as we're asking this question, I guess I'm asking myself, is our fine and applied arts departments, our different areas, are we creating spaces for students, all students, to be their most authentic selves, right? I started looking around Krannert, right? We had a campus culture episode a few weeks ago. We were talking about, after the Will Smith slap, right? It was like, why are Black people responsible for knowing how to comport ourselves in white spaces, right? But the same is never demanded, right? And there was a lot of discourse in the comment section, and somebody said, well, what is a Black space? What is a white space? So I'm gonna throw this first question out here, right? Maybe oversimplified on purpose, right? But it's a challenging question, right? And so we're all familiar with this lovely center, Krannert Center for Performing Arts. Is one of our flagships, our gemstones on campus. So here's the question. In your opinion, and answer however you like, is Krannert a Black space or white space? And I pose the question just like that on purpose.
For many years, coordinated the Intervoices Social Issues Theater program, and I'm a practicing artist for many years. One thing I do want to say is that in this room, there's, I'm sure, lots of different relationships, and some of them are really worth kind of noticing. So, for instance, Cynthia and Sharon, I were instrumental in founding the Urbana Public Arts Program, which has kind of disappeared, like the roots of that are gone away at this point. Sam, I've known for 30 years in the community, is doing this kind of work prior to even coming to Krannert Center. So I think, and I keep hearing other connections as well. So I think it's really important to as a way of thinking about decolonizing to sort of understand our roles of connection and collaboration, and not collaboration in a trendy way, but really deep collaborations. The other thing I think about with my students, instead of sort of getting at, what, is this art, is this not art? I really try to get at the question of what is the art doing? What is it doing? And I think that's one of the ways that I think about decolonizing through the practice. So really understanding that the art is doing something. It's not something it is actively doing. I think that's a thing that I hold on to. And then the other thing that I'll throw into the conversation has to do with, and it's come up also in a number of different ways, but the really interrogating form and content and understanding that it's a deep interrogation of the form, the aesthetic form, the changing of the form, and sort of connecting that to the ideas of radical or futurist. So really understanding as an artist that my role in producing content that is useful is about interrogating the forms. And so for me, the practice is also about asking questions. So rather than having answers, asking questions through interrogating form. So that's what I think about, and I have enjoyed being in the room and hearing as much as I can.
Yeah, so I think that's why I had asked that question, and we can go ahead and get back to it if somebody had the answer. But again, I look at Krannert as one of the forms of our expression, right? So to ask that question is exactly doing just that, interrogating the form. So, what do we think about that question? Is Krannert Center for the Performing Arts, is this a black space? Is this a white space?
Okay, I'll talk. My name is Sharon Irish. I've lived here since 1985. I feel very grounded in this town. I would say that Krannert is a white space because we live in a state of white terror in this country, and we are surrounded, we breathe it, we inhale it, we grow up with it. It is, whether you like it or not, a white space. Now, I applaud and am so grateful for all of you here and for those who come to push at that whiteness daily, weekly, yearly. But I really feel like, if I can adapt Bell Hooks's phrase, we are in this ableist, white supremacist, imperialist, capitalist, heteropatriarchy, and it is all there. And we kind of have to figure out how and when we can best intervene. For me, that has been locally, and that has been as much of a supporter and a amplifier as possible for other folks. And so if there's something happening at Krannert Center that brings Michael Mwenso or Kofi or any, say two, people together, then I certainly applaud that as an intervention or a crack, and let's make those cracks bigger. So, and it's just been such a pleasure to sit here and listen to y'all.
Other thoughts?
I'll go. Cynthia speaking again. I agree with Sharon as a kind of foundational set of thoughts. But one of the ways I think we can think about it also is architecturally. It's designed with a particular way of looking at art and a particular kind of policing of bodies as they come in the space. And in that way, I would say it is a white space. I think if it were designed by others, that it would look different and feel different as points of access how you negotiate each other in the space. I mean, we're sitting in this common area that is one of the most exciting spaces in the Krannert Center because we can shift it, change it, be together. There's a part of me that would like to think of Krannert as a mutable space, that there are times when, I mean, it depends on what's being curated or presented that brings in different kinds of audiences. And so that's exciting to me. And you know, I bristle a little with the kind of the binary of white black. But if I think about black as a spectrum, and in the kind of old school British, maybe other space, so it includes, you know, Asian, Latino, all of that, then I would say it is mutable in that way. And there are those times when folks of other histories and cultures come in, and that's when it gets really exciting. What I would love for Krannert would be for those moments to blend and mix so that we don't only see, you know, the African community come out when African artists are presented, or only see Latino folks come out when the Latino artists are here, but that everybody comes to everything. And that takes us all the way back to exposure and early education, and the point that Mark was making earlier about what gets cut right away, because that's education right there.
Can I answer?
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
So my time is split between like campus and the boxing gym, and you know I was a dropout for a long time, so I like worked in a factory and been around a lot of low income like blue collar spaces. And I think when we talk about decolonization, I mean we're also talking about class. So I mean we're talking about race and class, and like I know a lot of people. I know people who like think they can't come in here. So, I mean, white, not just racially, but sort of the broader idea of whiteness and upper class. It's absolutely that kind of space. I think there's no question. Probably the whole campus even.
Yeah. You jump in. I could say comedically, Krannert is a black space twice a year. February dance and November dance. Right? And those are the times, and I say that comedically because most of the time that's usually when I'm here, but it is at those particular times and times like that where the commentary is controlled by black folks, right? I remember a very particular year, I think it was February dance, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think you know where I'm going, where it was mostly black choreographers that night, and I swear you could smell the fish frying in the room. And like you could hear the aluminum foil unwrapping and people were passing around sweet potato pie. Like you could hear people in the audience go, child, yeah, oh yeah, get it, right? But we commandeered that space and we felt like it was our space because of what was coming from the stage, right? It wasn't an all black space, but in that particular moment, it was a very black utopian space, right?
Can I jump in there for a second?
Yes.
Because I would like to follow that. You are exactly right, but what you don't know is that following that experience, we were chastised for that because white people who came were uncomfortable with that space. And we had been celebrating it. We were congratulating ourselves for making people feel welcome. And for the first time ever in my 20 years here, that was a black predominant evening. And we were checked for that.
Yeah. I remember that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No,
for
thank you.
interrupting
I remember
you.
that.
But
It speaks to it, though.
right.
Yeah.
It speaks to it.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's the perfect way to end. Yeah.
Can I jump in there?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
One of the things this makes me aware of is how one of the things that whiteness loves to do is to perform itself as good. And here we are in a performance space. the temptation is, it is structurally oriented to the presentation of that which does not exist deeper. And there's some built-in challenges to that here that are, I think, come out.
And I recognize we have a spectrum of folks of color in the room, right? But I asked the question as a binary on purpose to kind of tease that part out, right? So I guess the next question would be, teach beat making, which, as a craft in academia is kind of brand new, right? You were talking about manga and how it was hard to find a place to study that, right? Dean Hamilton, you and I were talking about how we're trying to be on the forefront of like teaching podcasting, right? So what do you do when you find yourself as an arts department not able to reach students who want to learn things that you can't even teach? What do you do? I'm asking that to everybody, but also because we have our dean, with this, I think that's a relevant question.
I think one of the things we got to do is start putting the discussions about teaching and curriculum into that framework. Because what usually happens is that the faculty spend a lot of time trying to decide what should we teach, what's the latest variation on what our field offers, but it's a very closed conversation, and we have to make ourselves accountable as an institution to where the folks want to go, where the folks want to learn that we want to center and see here. It's got to flip in that way. And I want to say that I think that's also different from what I would observe to be a kind of customer-oriented mindset that we see in other parts of campus. There's some parts of universities that are saying you actually want to get away from teaching anything students don't want to learn, only teach the things they do want to learn. That's not what I'm saying. I think there's something different here, because there are folks out there who aren't here who are ready to be challenged and to be better at what they're doing here. I think we need to think about that too.
Other thoughts?
Just from my experience, just in the very particular medium that I work in, it's institutional, it's cultural though, just like, because what they don't tell you when you get an art education is that you're getting like a Western, like when you take art history, you're taking Italian art history. Like the elective is you got to take African art history or Asian art history or whatever. So I think it's like deeply embedded in the culture. And I think the way that we present art is a very, very specific thing under the guise of being sort of a general art. So I'm not sure about like considering it as an answer, but I think putting everything on the table when we present what we're teaching as, okay, this is a Western thing, add that on the end, just like we add Asian art or African art on the end. Why don't we call art history Western art history? Right. Little stuff like that. I mean, even adding into the syllabus or on like the course description, I think is important for showing that, although maybe we don't offer this class particular, here's the limited offerings that we do have. This is just Western art, just as an idea, I think.
I know we were supposed to be talking about the decolonization of professional development too, but I feel like we can't get past, because we have to get the education part right first, right? Because I guess my next thought was, well, what experiences are being put together, for emerging artists to get real world experience? Yeah. You know what I mean?
Can I have one more thing that my colleague Lou Turner will not be happy with me if I don't mention here if he hears this podcast later, because we have a colleague, Professor Lou Turner, in the Urban and Regional Planning program that is answering your question in some substantive ways right now, in a way that I think bears a lesson itself. There, as many of y'all might know, that several years back, this campus decided that all undergraduates should have one course in what they called broadly U.S. Minority Affairs. Small step that you should be able to take one class picked from a broad menu, the most tepid, sort of timid step into the required education. This set loose a lot of reflections and a lot of folks who have expertise in these areas saying, I do want to teach in one of these places, but I've got 20,000 more things I've got to do than other people around here, and I can't even get to developing a new course around this. Lou Turner's been answering this in our college by developing a new course in Black Arts. And what has been instructive is that it is very quickly became evident as he started developing it that it's going to be the only class in real aesthetics we have in the college. Like, we've actually left aesthetics behind in our teaching. So it's going to be far from the edge. It's going to be in the center of what the college offers. And we're going to move towards we're going to get it required. We're going to make sure every student in the college takes it. But I think that's instructive that we start answering these curriculum questions with an add-on. We say, okay, that too, but we're not willing to give up the center of what we do in this work.
And I think that's part of what I try and challenge in the spaces that I'm in. I always am reminding people that if you think about the best of what has been said and done in academia over the past 40, 60 years, intersectionality, post-colonial theory, transnational studies, these are coming from people on the ground outside of these very spaces. So the idea that you came up with this, that the knowledge sits within you and that you hold everything together is erroneous to begin with, because the knowledge is sitting out here in these different spaces, informally and formally, that are being co-opted and brought into these spaces and then argued over and made into sound bites like decolonial processes, et cetera. But this is where the knowledge is really rooted. So making sure that there's always this acknowledgement that there are other knowledge worlds that exist outside of this space that you have benefited from, that grandly, economically, politically, socially, emotionally, religiously, every single piece of this has been created off the backs and beings of the people who don't exist in these spaces, but hold these spaces up through their tax dollars, through their bodies, the work that they do as laborers to keep these facilities clean. These are the bodies that are producing the very knowledge that you get to walk around and hold your head up high and call yourself a world-class institution around.
Carolyn Randolph, everybody. Where can I sign up for your class?
Taking a break. No, yeah, go.
So Stacey, earlier you talked about the aesthetic and the coolness of the black artists, and Dean Hamilton, you were talking about how we've left that behind, right? Can you define that a little more and tell us maybe how can we get that back?
Yeah and no.
Okay, all right.
No, I mean, it is a couple things. One is, I was fortunate enough to be around in the late 60s, early 70s, at the very height of what people are now calling the Black Arts Movement. And folks looked at that as a particular point in time. And, we thought we were the first ones to bring up, these issues of aesthetics, the issues of our role. I mean, as I was saying before, and folks like Cecil challenged me. And, one of the things I would also say about Cecil was a member of the Tuskegee Airmen. And during World War II, I mean, we would see these images of these planes that would have these logos on them. They're symbols that the pilots would ask somebody to paint on. Cecil was one of those folks that actually painted those things on those planes. But saying all that to say is that, we were challenged and we thought that we were coming up with something that was unique and corrected, and folks from the generation before reminded us that these were discussions that folks had had before, and even before that, and before that. And the thing I said before, this line that ties us all the way back to Africa in one way or another. So that's one thing I wanted to deposit. And then, Monique had talked about the languages that she thinks in. And unfortunately, with the way that we have been taught and fed, and as Kofi reminded us about how we have defined what art history is, we really have lost the language to not only describe what we do as artists, but beyond that, I mean, what is art? And so so I'm saying all this to say that these are these discussions that we must continue to have and have with every generation at every point in time, all the time. And what I mean by no is that the no part of that answer is in all of those heated discussions that I was describing earlier, one of the things that I learned is that there were many Black aesthetics. And just like when you listen to what we call Black music, how many genres of that, how many different, this is a great and grand example here. Right next to me is Michael. And the music that he makes is unapologetically, getting back to that, unapologetically Black. But it is this mix of Earth, Wind, and Fire, of Afrobeat and Fela, of Kool and the Gang, and with a sprinkle of Sun Ra that's added to it. So we can dip our toes in all. We were talking yesterday, you mentioned Greg Tate. Greg Tate wrote this piece that was so foundational. The great cultural critic who we lost last year was also an artist, a great thinker, grand thinker. But he wrote this essay that so many of us really go back to, Flyboy and the Buttermilk. It was really about Basquiat. But he talked about how we are at a point where we can dip our toes in the waters of all of these different cultural strains and then create something and call it our own. So there are all these many different strains that exist. We just need to love and respect and embrace them all, and need to find a word, a term, or something, put it back to our poets. And I don't know how many of the poets are here in the room with us now, but we need to come up with a way that we can define what we do. And take this. Here's another, going back to the first question. I'm a little slow, so I'm answering that first question as well, too. But to really take a multidisciplinary approach. There are more and more graduate programs that are multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary. In fact, that's how I met Lisa Faye in a program like that. But we need to come up with a term that's not so clumsy. Carolyn was talking about like all these different things that have come before. Multiculturalism, all these were words that folks used, 20, 30 years ago. We need to come up with something that is both timely and lasting now. So I'm putting that back on like everybody else here, especially the younger artists who are here. You saw me hit Alana here. So that kind of yes and no.
So I think one thing that's really cool, and we talked about decolonizing as a community effort, right? We have many events, many initiatives happening. So and first I'll talk to Michael and Jono, right? I know y'all have something coming up in September that y'all are coming back to campus to do. Can y'all talk a little bit about that?
Well, it really springs out of how we felt we were not given enough when we went to places. And we were being almost trapped in a certain way. So it came out of impact and artistic freedom, and how can we actually connect more with community when we go to places. So we've been used to, over the years, you go there, boom, bash, bash, you're out, that's it. And you don't really meet nobody, and you don't connect with anybody as an artist. And it's just a name on a tour schedule. So in the last 2 years, we've been able to create deeper, lengthy impact with Penn State University and Bard College, and now here too. So it allows us to come like we've come, meet the community, and also come again, and also make the music be the vehicle for us coming. But also really the music is it's the first layer. So this is the spiritual work, and then we come and then we bring the next part of the food. So it's really a way of that we've been allowing ourselves to be fluid. And go on, what you gonna say?
I just need to tell them what dates.
Oh, the dates. I was going in. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
What's the next food? What's
Well,
the
then
band?
we never, but go on. You said the
You do
dates.
it.
No, I forgot what, 20 what? 20, go on.
So the next part of this is the whole band, Mwenso and the Shakes, is going to be in town for about a whole week, wanting to meet more community impact, and that's the week of the 19th of September.
Yes.
With a culminating performance, which we will work to be equitable and inclusive and get anyone here with tickets, whatever they need to be a part of it, on the 24th. 24th of September.
Sorry.
Oh, that's all good. And we'll look forward to having you, and we'll Campus Culture will definitely talk about it, and we'll re-air this clip at that time. I know, Kofi, you had something you wanted to talk about?
Incidentally, the same week they're going to be performing at the University YMCA. I have a solo, well, it was a solo exhibition. I'm going to be showing my manga. I'm going to be giving a talk on September 22nd. But now I'm headed to Tokyo to go work with some mangaka, and I'm coming back with some work from some Japanese mangaka, so I'm turning it into like an international exhibition. So that'll be September 22nd. I'm also going to pair it with a manga workshop that's free, open for anybody in the community that wants to come. Doesn't matter what age you are. I make sure that the institution pays me, but I don't charge people money. So anybody can come.
That's it. That's the cheat code, right? That's
it. Let the kids learn, all ages. So my talk is going to be on September 22nd. I think it's 7 p.m. I'm not sure. It's going to be at the University YMCA, but there's going to be flyers and stuff.
Bro, when you said that, I want to slide in like, don't be a menace. Message!
Yeah.
Get the institution to pay for it and make it free for the people.
That's game right there.
And Dr. O, I know you had something to announce.
Yes, as I mentioned before, so we are in our 4th year for our CU Black and African Arts Festival. We're going to be at Lincoln Square Mall, packing it out. Last year, we had over 50 plus vendors. Again, this is especially curated Black artists, Black stage performers, you name it, from Africa all the way here, local, Midwest. We have vendors who come every year from as far as Iowa, Mississippi, Indiana, you name it. So, and it's going to be 9 to 5. Actually, and I should say this now, Krannert so graciously has collaborated with us this year, so they're going to kick us off with the Soul Rebels performance here on Friday night. And then we will have our festival all day Saturday at Lincoln Square Mall. Again, the festival is free and open to the public, but there is a vending price, and also artists who want to come and share and talk, let's have a conversation. So that's all I'll say for now, but you can look us up on Facebook, Instagram. Our website is updating at the moment, but yes, so.
I look up what's the date?
I'm sorry, Saturday, September 10th.
Okay.
Saturday, September 10th.
It's at Krannert or
It's at Lincoln Square Mall in Urbana, but Friday night is at Krannert Center here. Yes.
How black can it be?
How black can it be? Listen. We've had everything from rap to my favorite performance last year was a Black violinist named Ted. I forget his name, but he was dope. I mean, it was. So we talk about that space. We talk about that space. Again, Krannert last year, Sam curated a special, I think Black Faculty Association did a conversation piece on the side. I mean, it was, you come, food. So food's going to be there as well. So, yeah, sorry.
All right. So to our campus culture audience, we appreciate you joining us. We are at Krannert Center for Performing Arts on campus here at the University of Illinois. We've been talking about decolonizing arts education and professional development for emerging artists. Give it up for yourselves, the panel. Good, awesome folks. So here's the deal. We're having so much fun. We're going to continue our conversation, but at this time we have to leave you. We encourage you to go to campusculturepodcast.com to see more. Catch the full episode at campusculturepodcast.com. Also on the TheLetterLBeats YouTube page as well, at Campus Culture Podcast on Instagram. And we'll see you next time. Thank you. Now we keep going. We keep going.